Marcel Proust, a French novelist and essayist, is widely regarded as one of the greatest literary figures of the 20th century. His magnum opus, In Search of Lost Time, À la recherche du temps perdu, is a monumental exploration of memory, time, and human experience. Published between 1913 and 1927 in 7 volumes, the novel was crafted over the course of Proust's later life. Despite its vast scope and intricate detail, the work remains cohesive, unified by its profound investigation into the workings of the mind and heart. The novel delves deeply into universal themes that resonate with readers across time and culture. At its heart is an exploration of memory, illustrating how seemingly forgotten moments can be vividly revived by sensory experiences, such as the famous scene of tasting a madeleine dipped in tea. Proust intertwines this with reflections on the fluidity of time, emphasizing its passage and its profound impact on individuals and society. Love is another central theme, portrayed with unflinching honesty as the narrative navigates the complexities of romantic relationships, including the interplay of desire, passion, and jealousy. Art emerges as a transformative force within the story, offering a means to preserve and interpret life's fleeting beauty. All of this unfolds against the rich social tapestry of late 19th and early 20th century France, where the novel critically examines the customs and dynamics of aristocratic and bourgeois society. Structured in 7 volumes, In Search of Lost Time weaves together personal introspection and rich social commentary. Each volume offers unique episodes in the protagonist's life, while contributing to the broader exploration of universal themes. Now that we've set the stage, let's dive into the story itself and uncover the treasures hidden within its pages. The novel opens with the narrator, now an adult, recalling his childhood in the small French town of Combray. This recollection is triggered by the taste of a madeleine dipped in tea, which transports him back to vivid moments of his youth. The narrator describes the house where his family stayed, particularly his attachment to his bedroom, where he would anxiously await his mother's goodnight kiss. This nightly ritual becomes a symbol of his deep longing for love and reassurance, particularly during a time when his mother's attention was divided by the presence of guests. One of the most poignant memories involves an evening when Charles Swann, a close family friend, visits their home. The narrator's frustration grows as Swann's presence delays his cherished moment with his mother. Desperate, he orchestrates an emotional plea, finally receiving her attention, which he treasures but later reflects on with a mixture of guilt and self-awareness. The Madeleine scene is one of the novel's most iconic moments. Years after his childhood, the narrator, while feeling emotionally numb, experiences a transformative moment when he tastes a madeleine dipped in tea. This seemingly ordinary act unleashes a flood of memories from his childhood in Combray, illustrating the novel's central theme of involuntary memory. The vividness of this recollection propels the narrator to explore how such moments of sensory association can unlock forgotten emotions and experiences. Through the narrator's memories, Combray is vividly brought to life. The town is described as a quiet, picturesque place with cobbled streets, a church at its center, and the surrounding countryside, where the narrator often walked with his family. These walks were significant not only for their idyllic charm, but also for the way they influenced his perception of art, nature, and relationships. The narrator introduces several key figures in his life during this time. His aunt Léonie, who is bedridden and full of peculiar habits, represents the eccentricities of provincial life. Françoise, the family's servant, provides a humorous and sometimes touching lens into the household's daily routines. The family's social circle, including the mysterious Charles Swann, becomes increasingly central to the narrative. The focus shifts to Charles Swann, a sophisticated and cultured man whose story unfolds in a long digression within the first volume. Swann becomes enamored with Odette de Crécy, a beautiful but socially less reputable woman. Their love affair is fraught with complexities, as Swann's passion for Odette grows obsessive. Despite his awareness of her flaws and infidelities, Swann becomes consumed by jealousy and desire. Swann's love for Odette is vividly illustrated through scenes of his longing and despair, including a moment when he becomes fixated on a particular piece of music, the Vinteuil Sonata. This melody comes to symbolize their relationship, intertwining his romantic idealization of Odette with his aesthetic sensibilities. The relationship between Swann and Odette also introduces readers to the social dynamics of the French aristocracy and bourgeoisie. Swann, despite his wealth and connections, faces subtle judgment for his association with Odette, revealing the rigid class structures and societal expectations of the time. As the second volume begins, the narrator transitions from the sheltered world of childhood to the uncertainties and discoveries of adolescence. He is introduced as a young man who yearns for new experiences and deeper understanding. His growing interest in art, literature, and love propels him into new environments, and he is particularly drawn to the prospect of traveling to Baalbek, a seaside resort renowned for its beauty and vibrant social scene. The journey to Baalbek is significant, marking the narrator's first extended period away from his family. Along the way, he reflects on his surroundings, noting the interplay of light, sea, and sky that profoundly affects his artistic sensibilities. These observations underscore his increasing awareness of beauty and its power to evoke deep emotional responses. Upon arriving at Baalbek, the narrator becomes immersed in its bustling life. He stays at the Grand Hotel, where he encounters a mix of locals and visitors, each contributing to the colorful tapestry of the resort. The narrator's days are filled with walks along the beach, moments of solitude, and opportunities to observe the people around him. A key figure introduced during this time is Madame de Villeparisis, a family acquaintance and member of the aristocracy. Through her, the narrator gains access to Baalbek's social circles, which include figures from various levels of French society. These interactions deepen his understanding of class, relationships, and the subtleties of social behavior. The narrator's focus soon shifts to a group of young girls he observes on the beach. This group, carefree and full of vitality, captivates him with their youthful beauty and spirited demeanor. Among them is Albertine Simonet, whose charm and individuality set her apart. Albertine becomes the object of the narrator's fascination. At first, she seems mysterious and somewhat unattainable, her behavior alternating between playful and aloof. The narrator finds himself drawn to her, not only for her physical beauty, but also for the sense of freedom and independence she exudes. Their interactions are marked by subtle exchanges, moments of connection, and the narrator's growing infatuation. Albertine's presence is pivotal, as it introduces the narrator to the complexities of romantic longing and self-discovery. His feelings for her oscillate between admiration, desire, and uncertainty, reflecting the turbulent emotions of adolescence. During his time at Baalbek, the narrator also forms significant friendships, most notably with Robert de Saint-Loup, a young aristocrat who shares insights into the world of the French upper class. Through Saint-Loup, the narrator gains a deeper appreciation for friendship, loyalty, and the nuances of human interaction. Additionally, the narrator's passion for art and literature continues to grow. He becomes more attuned to the subtleties of his surroundings, drawing inspiration from the landscapes, people, and moments that shape his experience at Baalbek. As the narrator's stay at Baalbek comes to an end, he reflects on the transformative nature of his time there. The seaside resort, with its vivid characters and moments of introspection, has left an indelible mark on his understanding of beauty, love, and himself. Albertine, in particular, lingers in his thoughts, foreshadowing her central role in his life as the story unfolds. As the third volume begins, the narrator's family has moved into a new apartment in Paris, located within the aristocratic Guermantes district. This setting brings him into close proximity to the Guermantes family, a powerful and prestigious lineage that he has long admired from a distance. His fascination with the family is rooted in childhood stories, myths, and their connections to French history, which cast them as figures of almost legendary status. The Duchesse de Guermantes, in particular, captivates the narrator's imagination. Her elegance, wit, and social standing make her a symbol of everything he associates with the grandeur of high society. The narrator becomes determined to enter the Guermantes' world, believing that proximity to such an aristocratic figure will grant him access to a deeper understanding of culture, refinement, and life's higher pleasures. The narrator frequently encounters members of the Guermantes family, including the Duchesse, during his walks in the neighborhood and at public events. He observes their behavior, clothing, and interactions with others, analyzing every detail as he tries to decipher the codes of aristocratic life. His growing obsession with the Duchesse leads him to contrive opportunities to be near her, such as attending the same church services or timing his walks to coincide with her routine. Despite his initial idealization, the narrator begins to notice the performative and sometimes superficial aspects of high society. Through his observations and brief conversations, he starts to see the contradictions between the image of aristocracy he imagined and the reality of its social dynamics. The narrator's quest to integrate himself into the Guermantes' world introduces him to a variety of characters from Parisian high society. Among them is the Prince de Guermantes, whose interactions with the narrator reveal the calculated charm and underlying rigidity of aristocratic life. These encounters expose the narrator to the complexities of social hierarchies, alliances, and rivalries. He also develops a closer relationship with Robert de Saint-Loup, his friend from Balbec, who provides an insider's perspective on the Guermantes family and their social milieu. Saint-Loup's openness and loyalty offer the narrator a counterpoint to the often cold and strategic behavior he observes in others. One of the pivotal settings in this volume is the salon of Madame de Villeparisis, a distant relative of the Guermantes family and a prominent social figure. The narrator begins attending her gatherings, which serve as a microcosm of Parisian high society. Here, he meets influential artists, writers, politicians, and aristocrats, gaining insight into their conversations, rivalries, and ambitions. These salon scenes provide a detailed depiction of the intellectual and cultural life of the era, showcasing the intersection of art, politics, and personal relationships. They also highlight the narrator's growing awareness of the performative nature of social interactions and the often unspoken rules that govern them. As the narrator spends more time observing and interacting with members of the Guermantes family, his idealized view begins to fade. He realizes that the aristocracy, while outwardly glamorous, is riddled with vanity, superficiality, and a preoccupation with maintaining appearances. The Duchesse de Guermantes, once the object of his admiration, becomes a more human and fallible figure in his eyes, her wit and charm sometimes overshadowed by her aloofness and indifference. This disillusionment is not entirely negative. It marks a turning point in the narrator's understanding of the world. He begins to question the value of social status and the true meaning of refinement, paving the way for his later reflections on art, love, and personal identity. The fourth volume, Sodom and Gomorrah, begins with the narrator making an unexpected discovery that introduces him to themes of hidden desire and societal hypocrisy. While visiting the home of the Baron de Charlus, he observes a private moment between the Baron and Jupien, a tailor. This interaction reveals Charlus's homosexuality, a secret carefully concealed within the rigid norms of Parisian high society. The narrator reflects on this revelation, noting how same-sex relationships are often shrouded in secrecy and misunderstood by society. This discovery prompts him to become more observant of the hidden lives and behaviors of those around him, deepening his understanding of human complexity and the tension between private desires and public appearances. Baron de Charlus becomes a central figure in this volume, embodying the duality of outward respectability and concealed identity. Despite his aristocratic stature and commanding presence, Charlus navigates his romantic life with extreme caution, masking his true self behind layers of charm, arrogance, and manipulation. Through his interactions with Charlus, the narrator gains further insight into the challenges faced by those who deviate from societal norms. The Baron's relationships, particularly his interest in younger men like Jupien's nephew, highlight the complex dynamics of power, attraction, and vulnerability within these secretive liaisons. The narrator also explores the broader social attitudes toward homosexuality, observing how individuals like Charlus are forced to conform outwardly while pursuing their desires in the shadows. This duality reinforces the novel's theme of societal hypocrisy and the constraints imposed by rigid social structures. Parallel to his observations of Charlus, the narrator's romantic and emotional life takes center stage. His fascination with Albertine, introduced in the previous volume, evolves into an all-consuming obsession. As they spend more time together, the narrator becomes increasingly preoccupied with her every move, analyzing her words, actions, and interactions with others for signs of infidelity or hidden intentions. The narrator's jealousy becomes particularly pronounced when he suspects Albertine of harboring romantic or sexual feelings for other women. His insecurities lead him to question her honesty and loyalty, fueling a cycle of doubt and possessiveness. This marks the beginning of a deeply conflicted and controlling relationship, as the narrator's love for Albertine is intertwined with his need for control and reassurance. The narrator continues to participate in social events, where he observes the interplay of power, status, and pretense among the aristocracy and bourgeoisie. These gatherings provide a backdrop for further exploration of societal hypocrisy, as individuals navigate the tension between public expectations and private realities. One notable setting is a party hosted by the Verdurins, a recurring social hub for artists, intellectuals, and social climbers. The Verdurin circle, while outwardly progressive and open-minded, reveals its own forms of hypocrisy and exclusion. Charlus's behavior at these gatherings becomes increasingly erratic and confrontational, exposing the strain of maintaining his dual identity. As the volume progresses, the narrator's experiences and observations lead him to question his own understanding of love and desire. His obsession with Albertine forces him to confront the darker aspects of his personality, including his jealousy, possessiveness, and fear of betrayal. At the same time, his encounters with figures like Charlus challenge his assumptions about sexuality and the nature of human relationships. These dual threads, the narrator's relationship with Albertine and his exploration of hidden desire in others, underscore the complexity of human emotion and the pervasive influence of societal norms on individual lives. At the beginning of the 5th volume, the narrator has brought Albertine to live with him in Paris. This arrangement, ostensibly an act of love, is motivated by his overwhelming jealousy and desire to control her. The narrator fears losing Albertine, not only to other men but, more intensely, to the possibility of her romantic or sexual interest in women, which he suspects but cannot confirm. This suspicion haunts him, deepening his obsession and influencing his every interaction with her. The apartment where they reside becomes the setting for much of the volume, a confined space that mirrors the increasingly claustrophobic nature of their relationship. The narrator employs subtle and overt methods to monitor Albertine's actions, movements, and even her thoughts. He limits her freedom, questioning her incessantly about where she has been and whom she has seen. Albertine, for her part, responds with a mix of compliance and resistance, often deflecting his questions with vague or evasive answers. Despite his efforts to keep her close, the narrator remains tormented by the idea that Albertine is deceiving him. He scrutinizes her words and actions for hidden meanings, searching for evidence to confirm his fears. His jealousy becomes all-consuming, dominating his thoughts and preventing him from finding peace. Albertine's behavior throughout this volume is complex and enigmatic. While she appears to accept the restrictions placed on her, moments of rebellion or subtle defiance suggest that she resents the narrator's control. She maintains her charm and playfulness, but her true feelings about their arrangement are often unclear, adding to the narrator's unease. Albertine occasionally expresses a desire for greater freedom, hinting at the tensions underlying their relationship. These moments reveal the imbalance of power between them and foreshadow the ultimate unsustainability of their arrangement. The narrator is acutely aware of the contradictions in his behavior. He recognizes that his love for Albertine is tainted by jealousy and possessiveness, yet he cannot bring himself to let her go. He oscillates between moments of tenderness and bouts of suspicion, reflecting the duality of his emotions. At times, the narrator attempts to distract himself by focusing on art and literature, but his thoughts inevitably return to Albertine. His internal monologues reveal the depth of his anguish and his growing realization that his attempts to control her are futile and destructive. The relationship between the narrator and Albertine becomes increasingly suffocating for both parties. The confinement of their living situation, combined with the narrator's relentless questioning and mistrust, creates an atmosphere of tension and unease. Albertine, once a symbol of vitality and freedom, is reduced to a prisoner in their home, mirroring the narrator's emotional imprisonment by his own jealousy. This dynamic underscores the corrosive effects of possessive love, which erodes the very connection it seeks to preserve. Despite the narrator's efforts to keep Albertine close, she ultimately decides to leave. Her departure is abrupt, shattering the fragile balance of their relationship. The narrator is left devastated, consumed by regret and longing. He reflects on the moments they shared, questioning whether his fears and suspicions were justified or merely projections of his own insecurities. Albertine's departure marks a turning point in the narrator's journey, forcing him to confront the consequences of his actions and the limitations of his understanding of love. The sixth volume begins with the narrator grappling with the emotional aftermath of Albertine's departure. Her leaving is sudden and devastating, a culmination of the tension that has been building throughout The Prisoner. The narrator is thrown into a state of deep grief and confusion, unable to fully comprehend the reasons behind Albertine's decision to leave him. His internal turmoil is all-consuming as he struggles to accept her absence and the loss of the relationship that had dominated his life for so long. The volume opens with the narrator's feelings of abandonment, mixed with a sense of betrayal. His mind races through a series of recollections, both painful and longing, of the time they spent together. These memories, now tainted by her departure, take on a different quality, one that is at once elusive and ever-present. He reflects on how he may have contributed to the breakdown of their relationship, but also how Albertine herself seemed complicit in the emotional manipulation, creating an emotional conflict that deepens his sorrow. In the wake of Albertine's departure, the narrator becomes increasingly introspective. He reflects not only on the nature of his love for her, but on the broader themes of love, memory, and the passage of time. His grief becomes a catalyst for examining the illusions he harbored about their relationship and his obsessive need for control over her. The sense of loss pushes him to confront the deeper aspects of his emotional life, including his fears of abandonment, his jealousy, and his tendency to idealize the people he loves. The narrator's internal reflections delve into the paradox of love, how it can be both beautiful and painful, binding and freeing, yet always tinged with the inevitability of loss. He recognizes that his love for Albertine was built on the shifting sands of his own desires, doubts, and insecurities. His introspection leads him to an understanding of how his possessive love may have suffocated their relationship, leaving him with nothing but the bitter aftermath. The themes of memory and time become even more pronounced as the narrator contemplates the fleeting nature of his experiences with Albertine. He is acutely aware of how memories, once vivid and full of emotion, fade over time, distorting and shifting as they are filtered through his present state of mind. The narrator is left questioning whether his memories of Albertine were ever truly accurate, or if they were merely projections of his emotional needs and desires. The passage of time, which once seemed to flow relentlessly forward, now feels cyclical, as the narrator revisits memories in an attempt to capture and preserve moments that have slipped away. He experiences a sense of temporal dislocation, where past and present intertwine, making it difficult to discern the reality of his past relationship from the illusions he has constructed around it. Seeking some form of solace, the narrator returns to Combray, the place of his childhood, in an attempt to find comfort and a sense of continuity. The return to Combray is both a literal and metaphorical journey back to a time when his life was simpler and more innocent. As he revisits the landscapes, the people, and the familiar spaces of his youth, he reflects on how the passage of time has altered not only his external world, but also his internal one. The narrator's experiences in Combray prompt him to reflect on the people and events that have shaped him, including the central role that Albertine and his love for her played in his emotional development. Through these reflections, he comes to understand that the grief he feels is a natural consequence of the passage of time and the inevitability of change. The longing for Albertine, even in her absence, is a manifestation of the human desire to hold on to moments that are lost to time. His reflections on Combray become a meditation on the impermanence of life itself, and how our memories of the past, however distorted, are all that we have left to preserve the essence of our experiences. As the volume progresses, the narrator begins to make tentative steps toward moving forward. Though the process is slow and fraught with difficulty, his grief is still fresh, and the emotional scars of losing Albertine are deep. He attempts to re-engage with the world around him, finding comfort in intellectual pursuits and, to some extent, in social interactions. However, these efforts are often tinged with a sense of futility, as the narrator is unable to fully escape the grip of his memories. Despite his desire to let go, the pain of loss remains a constant companion. The narrator recognizes that grief is not a linear process. It ebbs and flows, and there are moments when the weight of his sorrow becomes overwhelming. Yet he also understands that time is the only true remedy for healing, and that eventually the sharpness of his grief will soften, even if the memory of Albertine will never completely fade. The final volume of In Search of Lost Time opens with the narrator returning to Paris after a long period of isolation. The years of introspection and grief following Albertine's departure have distanced him from the social world. But now, in the face of time's relentless passage, he finds himself reintegrating into society. The initial chapters focus on his return to familiar social circles and his interactions with the people he once knew, many of whom have changed during his absence. The social scenes, once vibrant with life, now appear altered, as both the people and the world itself have shifted over time. The narrator reflects on how much he has missed during his years of withdrawal, recognizing that the passage of time has left both permanent and transient marks on the lives of others. The world he returns to is both familiar and strange, forcing him to reassess the relationships he once held dear, and to face the challenge of reconnecting with a society that has moved on without him. As the narrator reconnects with old acquaintances, he begins to experience a flood of recollections. The process of returning to society brings back memories from his past, especially from his time in Combray and his experiences with Albertine. However, the narrator's memories now take on a different form. They are no longer simply recollections of specific moments. Instead, they seem to connect with a deeper, more universal understanding of the passage of time. These memories, once fragmented and filled with longing, now feel integrated into a broader sense of continuity, helping the narrator to grasp the fluidity of time and the impermanence of all things. The themes of memory and time are intricately woven throughout the volume, with the narrator frequently reflecting on how the act of recollection itself plays a role in shaping both individual identity and the experience of life. The memories that resurface, often triggered by seemingly insignificant details or encounters, come to symbolize the ways in which the past continues to influence the present. The narrator begins to see that the act of remembering is not just a passive recall, but an active process, one that allows him to regain a sense of control over his experiences. As the volume progresses, the narrator's thoughts turn toward the role of art in capturing the essence of life and time. He begins to realize that his purpose as a writer is to create a work that mirrors his process of recollection, one that encapsulates both the passing of time and the emotions tied to memory. The realization that writing can serve as a means of preserving the past while simultaneously engaging with the present becomes a pivotal moment in his journey. The narrator recognizes that in order to truly capture the essence of life, he must embrace both the transience of individual moments and the timeless nature of human experience. This understanding leads him to the conclusion that the act of artistic creation is a way to regain something lost to time, by transforming the fleeting moments of life into something permanent and meaningful. The process of writing itself becomes an act of redemption, enabling the narrator to reconcile his personal losses with the broader human experience. In the later chapters of the volume, the narrator continues to navigate his interactions with the people around him. His relationships, both past and present, are now viewed through the lens of memory, allowing him to reassess their significance. The former intensity of his connections with figures like Swann, Odette, and Albertine now seems to fade into the background, as the narrator recognizes that the passage of time has altered his perception of them. The narrator's reflections on love and society are deeply intertwined with his understanding of art. Just as he learns to appreciate the impermanence of relationships, he comes to understand that the transient nature of life itself is an essential part of the human experience. The lives of those around him, once defined by emotional intensity and dramatic moments, now appear as part of a larger, more complex tapestry, woven together by the shared passage of time. In the concluding chapters, the narrator reaches a sense of reconciliation with both his past and his present. He reflects on the people he has lost, the relationships that have changed, and the time that has slipped away. But instead of feeling regret, he experiences a sense of acceptance. The pain of the past no longer holds the same power over him, and he begins to understand that the memories that once caused him grief are now part of a larger, more profound understanding of life. The narrator's acceptance of time's passage marks a final transformation in his journey. The fragmented, obsessive thoughts of his earlier years give way to a more integrated sense of self, one that acknowledges both the fleeting nature of existence and the permanence of art. He understands that the process of recollection, both personal and artistic, allows one to regain what is lost, even if it is only in a symbolic sense. In Search of Lost Time has left an indelible mark on literature, particularly through its groundbreaking narrative style. Proust's use of stream of consciousness and his exploration of involuntary memory have influenced countless modernist writers. The novel's intricate portrayal of time and human experience continues to resonate with readers and scholars alike, pushing the boundaries of what a novel can convey. For readers, Proust's work offers valuable takeaways, encouraging them to delve into their own memories and reflect on the ways time shapes their identity. The narrative provides profound insights into the complexities of love, loss, and the intricacies of human relationships, urging a deeper understanding of how we relate to our past and to those around us.